All right, gentlemen, we are live. Kelly Siegel, Sam Crudo, thanks for joining us on today's Technology Corner with NTM. Happy holidays to you guys.
Well, good morning and happy holidays.
Happy New Year. It's good to be here.
It's going to be a great year, 2022. So we have a guest today, Sam Crudo. Sam owns an insurance agency in Detroit, Michigan, or in the Detroit, Michigan area. And Sam, we'll get to some of your baseball card stats in a minute. But before we do, just a few parking lot items for everybody as we get started. These are 9:15 a.m. Eastern every Friday. Today's special guest is Sam. Obviously, we're talking about cybersecurity insurance for businesses and how that impacts you and what that looks like. This is being recorded live to Facebook. It'll be on YouTube shortly, and it'll also be on our website at trustntm.com. So Sam, welcome and thank you for joining us. Why don't you just give us a few baseball card stats, name, what you do, and let's start there.
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you. We have an independent agency in the metropolitan Detroit area, CIA Insurance and Risk Management Group. And basically, we provide insurance and risk management to businesses, I'd say throughout Michigan, but we have many national customers, so throughout the country. And focusing on assessing, managing, and transferring risk via commercial insurance, and then helping clients implement risk management strategies. The agency has been around since 1975. We're part of a national company now serving all 50 states. And as an independent agent, we don't have any one carrier we're committed to. So we're able to go to the marketplace depending on the particular niche or needs of any one client and provide the right product and coverages to manage that.
That's awesome.
Hey, let me jump in there, Dave, for a second. I want to give him my infomercial on there too. I've known Sam. We cold called Sam 20 years ago, and he's been a customer. I've been a customer of his. We've become friends. And he legitimately does everything he says. And every single year, even if I don't want to do it, Sam insists on meeting with me and goes over all my coverage. And what he says, you listen to. And I imagine, I don't know, it was 5 years ago now, 6 years ago now, he sat me in front of me and said, you need to have cyber coverage. And I'm like, what? I'm in the IT business. I'm like, why do I need it? And he goes through and he detailed it, and he just keeps us out of harm's way and shops it every year and keeps our rates down. And so he's one of those rare people that actually does what he says he's going to do. So this is my infomercial that if anybody's looking for a true independent agent, CIA Insurance, Sam Crudo is in fact legit and the man. And he won't try to hard sell you. And they're just everybody on his staff is wonderful. They deliver results, and I just highly, highly recommend them. And he's now partnered with a national company, so his reach is very strong. Has a lot of good carriers. And if you ever need to file a request, he does everything for you, and they are awesome. So, Sam, I really appreciate your friendship. I really appreciate all your hard work. And you keep me going to bed at night knowing that we have all the coverage. So thank you.
Thank you for those kind words.
And Sam, we're super grateful that you're here this morning. So let's dive in, because this is such a hot topic as of late. Kelly mentioned earlier today, there's multiple prospects that we're working with here at NTM to try to help them understand the value of outsourcing their IT to the right partner and the right provider. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. But man, so talk to us. The first question of the day is normal insurance policies. Do they cover cybersecurity issues? So if I'm a business, if I'm a manufacturing firm, if I'm a healthcare practice, if I'm a law firm with multiple locations throughout the Detroit or Northern Ohio area, wherever, and I have a normal insurance policy for my business, does it cover me for cybersecurity issues?
No, typically, depending on the business or industry, and you're going to always have a general liability. And you may, if you're in a healthcare, you may have professional or malpractice or other types of liability, but there's an absolute cyber exclusion in every policy.
Really?
In more recent years, our industry has had a number of lawsuits saying, well, I thought I had cyber, I should have had cyber. So we're seeing some carriers throw in a very, very small amount of coverage. And when I say small, 10, 15, or 20, the most I've seen is 25, where we're going to give you this little bit of coverage so that it's very clear that anything above this we're not covering. And then that coverage that they do, if they provide it, is very, very limited. It's the farthest thing from a true cyber liability that's out there. So,
I want to come back to something you mentioned a minute ago, because that caught my attention. I was taking a note. Cyber exclusion. So what it sounds like what you're saying, if I'm a business owner, I have a typical insurance policy that doesn't cover cybersecurity issues, and they actually have an exclusion clause in there that excludes me from submitting cybersecurity issues?
Correct. When our industry wants to make sure that everything's clear, they not only point out what's covered, but there's a very large section in coverages that says exclusions. And you will find a cyber exclusion specifically, because the policy was never designed to cover cyber.
Right.
These policies have been around for 100 years or longer. And as the cyber risk developed, a separate niche developed to cover that exposure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to reiterate this, and I don't think many people know this because I didn't even know this. Cyber is just a fancy word for computer now in the insurance business, right? So it's, if you have any computer issue, not even just a cyber or ransomware or any, that technically would fall under the cyber coverage and would be excluded, correct?
Correct. Now, you can buy hardware coverage, and you can buy software coverage separately, but that would cover the mechanical failure or loss of data, but that doesn't cover the cyber exposure. I would say that every one of my clients has a cyber exposure unless they never connect to the internet, the cloud. If you have a standalone PC and you're keeping your books and there's no internet access, there's no Wi-Fi, but I don't think we see that in today's world at all.
Yeah. You know, I've been around so long that I sold people their first ever internet connection. I may have sold you your first one. I can't remember. It's been so long.
So Sam, talk about what typical cyber insurance policies cover.
So the cyber coverage is it's starting to get to a phase of maturity of the coverage where we're seeing some more standardization. But I will tell you that as an independent agent, we will typically spreadsheet 5 or 6 different carriers. And within those carriers, you will see many areas that are not covered and many that are. So the most common cyber coverage that we see that started out is cyber liability. I have data in my system, it's hacked, and somebody's damaged because of it. Whether it be private information, whether it be access, they got into my banks, they got into my data, they got my personal records. Every employer that has social security numbers, even if it's cloud-based through a payroll company, they're accessing that data through their PC. So there's a gateway to that data, and if it's accessed, there's that potential liability of damages. If you are damaged, there's many federal requirements about notifications that you are required by law to notify everybody in writing within a very short period of time, and then you have to pay to monitor every individual that was exposed. You have to pay for credit monitoring for 2 years. So there's all the costs associated with that. Those were the primary coverages we originally saw, and it's now expanded. By far, the most claims I see, and literally, without exaggeration, I see 5 or 6 a year, and that's ransomware. So any good cyber liability policy is going to cover ransomware. It's so easy to get. The bad actors know how to send out emails that get employees to click on them innocently, realizing, thinking they're clicking on a FedEx or whatever it might be, and launching ransomware. So we'll pick up not only the cost to recover, but potentially the ransomware if they can't recover the data via backups.
Yeah.
Another big area we're seeing is social engineering, where bad actors are reaching out to employees of a firm, putting together stories that by using social media, finding out that the owner's in vacation in Hawaii, finding out that the CFO on the website, and putting together strings of emails. And I literally have had more than 3 claims in the past 2 years where clients have wired money to people. Twice it was recovered back because they caught it in time. Once, so it pays for what we call social engineering.
That is
reputation,
the easiest thing.
Forensic work. There's probably 15 key areas. Cybercrime. So they get in and they steal $250,000 out of your account. So it'll cover the loss of funds from a bank account or wire transfers. So it's quite a wide variety, and there is no standard in the industry. If you're going to go out to the cyber world, we have a lot of tools that we use to be able to show what are the potential exposures based off of your industry, what specific exposures do you have, and then what carrier is going to best suit those needs in terms of pricing and coverage.
That makes sense. What were you going to say, Kelly?
I just said that he called it social engineering, which is the big umbrella of that, but that literally specific issue is called spoofing, and it is the easiest thing. I could teach you guys in 30 seconds how to do it. It is so simple and so easy, and it's so easy to just combat, but a lot of people fall prey to it. It is literally just changing the outbound name on your email. That just looks, so it looks like Sam sending me an email or Sam sending you an email, and someone looks really, really fast, like, oh, Sam sent me an email to change my banking. And they didn't hover over the email to see that it wasn't Sam. And it's literally that easy. And it does not take a bad actor. It does not take a genius. We can do it in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It is insane.
So Sam, what, and I love the context around what the insurance, those cyber insurance policies do cover. What don't they cover?
Well, cyber coverage is going to have exclusions, as we went back to the original general liability, and that varies by carrier. So again, as we talk through the ransomware, the liability, the extortion, the social engineering, not all policies cover social engineering or spoofing. Most do, but there are some that not. So typically what I recommend is anybody that's exploring buying cyber is read what's covered, but go to the exclusions, because you will see various different exclusions depending on the carrier. So you have to be really careful when purchasing it, because I spreadsheet 4 carriers and I get a price between $1,800 and $3,000. Well, if I go to the 1,800, I might be missing 3 key coverages I need. So it's looking at both coverages, limits, and then what my exposures are.
Kelly, what were you going to say?
I just, first, there's 2 things that Sam said that were very important there. Is notice the price range that he gave was pretty dead on, $1,800 to $3,000. That's about a typical, I don't want to speak for him, but it's about a typical what a cyber coverage is. However, I didn't know that some of the companies exclude certain things like social engineering. So I would highly recommend that they grab their IT partner, their CIO, somebody that understands what that risk is. Because for $1,200 a year, for a measly $100, and that's don't quote me, but that's what his range was. Yeah. And Sam knows that I always just max out our coverage, and a lot of times I double it. It's just worth it for $1,200. If you don't know what social engineering is, you don't know what spoofing is, call me, call Kelly Siegel, and I will explain to you what that freaking risk is in detail. And explain to it to just pay the extra money, pay the insurance, and get it. I am dumbfounded, which kind of leads into what Sam will tell you too, is it's really hard to get us insured anymore. He said next year, he sat me down this year, he goes, next year, Kelly, we're losing carriers to cover the managed service providers. So we have to, he works very hard for us to be covered because we are in a tough spot because we're the last line of protection to ensure that his customers, our customers, don't get popped, which is what I'd like you to lead into is some of the questions. It's like getting a life insurance policy. If coverage is going to have a lot of questions for your IT partner. So you should probably go into that next.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are some aspects when businesses are choosing a cybersecurity policy that they should look at, Sam?
What I could do is, if you'd like, I could actually provide you with a checklist.
That'd be awesome.
I think the most important thing I tell all my clients is having coverage is critical in the event you get hit. But I've never had a client that has been hit and we paid the claim that didn't create great interruption in their business. Okay. So the best thing that a client can do is prevention. Putting in multi-factor authentication, putting in all the things that companies like NTM are going to recommend, the right firewalls, making sure all the firmware is updated, everything. Again, nice. I know a little bit more about that because I'm exposed to it, but that's Kelly's expertise. Because even if you have the coverage in place, there's nothing worse than showing up on a Monday morning and you can't service a client because you can't get into any file, any record. Everything is locked up. You go to your backups, and the bad actors today plant seeds that sit there, and 6 months later, when they hit all your backups. Now you're totally shut down. Now we help recover from that, but better than having the coverage is not having the loss at all.
Yeah.
What I would recommend to any client is getting with their managed IT provider, going through, making sure they have all the critical components to prevent it. One of the most basics that I recommend that every client have is MFA, or multi-factor authentication. That mitigates a number of losses. But then looking at their industry and going down the checklist. Do I have that exposure? And do I need that coverage? And then what would be the cost to cover?
Cool. And Kelly, did that cover some of the questions that you were asking about a few minutes ago?
Well, it just, we're big partners of our clients. So we fill out the forms, the insurance forms for our clients. So multi-factor authentication, Sam alluded to, is the first question. Then the second questions are usually, who has access to the data? What logging is being done? I mean, it is a laundry list of questions that they ask us now that they won't cover if you say no. So if you're not working with your IT company or your IT partner with your insurance company, you're exposed. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. I mean, I've had to fill out so many forms for our clients and show that we're actually going through, heck, our white papers gives 7 things. The first 4 are critical. If you're not doing the first 4 and your partner and they cannot provide you with proof, you are exposed. That's if and so. Number 1 talks about backups and updates, and the second one talks about multi-factor authentication. So they're basic things we call basic at NTM, but a lot of companies are not doing it. So Sam shared that list with us, that checklist. And they're getting more and more and more. We had a question from an insurance company that asked us about how we're monitoring remote users, which I was like, whoa, finally, they're getting smart. So the list is long and distinguished, and it's getting longer. And if they haven't had that conversation, they don't have the coverage.
I bet 100%.
Yeah, I'll just add, prior to the pandemic, most carriers were fairly loose. We'd fill out an application. As long as you had 2, 3, you were doing some basic stuff, they issued a policy.
Yeah.
Since the pandemic hit and the amount of claims has skyrocketed, the industry nationally lost money in 2020 and 2021 because the amount of attacks have gone up substantially due to all the remote workers and all the loopholes and lack of security that flipping everybody to remote overnight. So with that today, it's not uncommon. You send the application back and I submit it to the carrier and they say, here's a quote, but we'll only offer the coverage provided they implement number 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Because those are basics that you have to have that we're not even going to take the risk if you're not doing it. Where prior to the pandemic, they were pretty loose, but they're losing money now. The amount of claims we've seen has just been just over the chart in the last 2 years.
Bet. Yeah. So let's talk about those. You know, we talk about claims, some of your clients. I want to touch on some success stories and horror stories. So first, let's talk about some horror stories because those are the juicy ones, right? You don't obviously have to name names, but what are some instances or situations where you've seen some absolutely just really bad situations with cybersecurity, no coverage, lack of coverage, whatever it is? Like, let's just talk about maybe a couple of really bad stories that have happened in your tenure over the last few years.
Yeah, we've had several clients get hit without coverage in different types of claims. One particular was putting money into escrow, that spoofing or phishing email, getting a fake email and a client wiring money for closing. The day before closing, looked legitimate, thought it was legitimate, knew he was closing, and money never came back. We had talked with that client year after year about cyber, which would have picked the escrow up and was an uncovered loss. And needless to say, the client was not very happy. You know, at the end of the day, we said, look, we've been talking about it every year. Yeah, I know. I never thought me, right? We've had a pretty large ransomware claim. It was a rather large commercial account. Locked everything up, and they thought they were bulletproof because of their backups. So they went to the backups, and the backups were fully locked up as well. Again, Kelly could probably speak to it, but somehow they plant the ransomware, but they don't launch it immediately. They wait a few months for it to settle into all the backups. So when it launches, it hits the backups. And again, another case where we did not have coverage in place. We had offered it, we recommended it. And I think that one all in cost the client. They're estimating because they ended up paying the ransomware.
Yeah.
To get the data back, which was, I think their ransom was 30 grand, but then trying to calculate the loss interruption, the business and everything else, probably $75,000 hit, which, you know, typically a $2,500 policy would have covered. So we're seeing different ones. I had one social engineering where they wired money to a bank account. Wasn't a great amount, but still $10,000 wire that was social engineering or spoofing that they pulled off. So we're seeing a lot of it. I always tell my clients, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hit, it's a matter of when you're going to get hit.
Yes.
And regardless of size, everybody's a target because the people that are looking to get money, they don't care if it's 500 or 500,000. They have bots that are out there looking for weaknesses in firewalls and opportunities, and they will go after anything and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's what they're designed to do, right? They're designed to be bad guys, and bad guys do bad things. So that makes sense.
Yep.
So it's amazing what $2,500 a year will cover and take care of versus not having it. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I guess,
Dave,
go ahead, Kel.
Go ahead, Sam.
I should clarify that premium can range quite a bit. So, you know, when we look at it, if you should talk to your agent if you're not or already haven't, you know, because the exposure for a small doctor's office with, you know, 500 patients going to be completely different than a manufacturer doing 150 million in sales.
Yeah.
So that premium can get higher. It can come, I've seen them well under $1,000 too. So it really is what is the volume you're doing, what is the records you have, what is the exposure. So I just want to be careful that when we talk pricing, I've seen them below 1,000, I've seen them above 5,000. So it really varies on the exposure.
And Dave, I do have to jump in. Sam said some fantastic things there. The number one thing is, yes, great, they paid out, but their business was down for probably a week. And I'm telling you, this sounds so brazen and so cocky, but you know me, and I want to help people. That backup situation is IT elementary 101. We have backups to backups to backups. So if you go to a legitimate company, that would be a 5-minute mitigation, and we would have just. So yeah, we have Sam to pay out, but how about I just have you back up in probably 15 minutes, literally. And I don't mean I mean my team of people. Yeah. So these things that he's showing, that was number one. That's, hey, it's great that we're going to pay you, but what is the business interruption and how do you recover? And number two was how we talked about they got bad people are sitting in there. They were sitting in there watching that wire transfer that he was talking about and watching that email chain for months. They knew that transaction was coming, and they knew exactly. They watch how the lingo works, what they say, and they usually are sitting in there for 6 months to a year so they can make that big payment. And then they're also looking for the double ransomware where they're trying to find something personal on you to get you to pay another one. So it's good to hear that all the times that we've had our talks, our Friday chats, that everything has happened to people, man. I just heard of a law firm that got $1 million ransom, $1 million, and they had to pay it. You just told me a story of one of your clients, of somebody that left. It's happening. And what Sam said, everybody thinks it doesn't happen to them till it does. And it can put you out of business. Partner with someone like NTM, and we will keep you safe.
Yeah. So Sam, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing those up, Kelly. When you talk about the backups were locked up, because that's just like you said, that's just 101. They should be doing this. And if they're not, you have a bad provider. So Sam, talk about some of the success stories that you've seen by companies having cybersecurity insurance.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that most people don't think of, if you don't have a managed IT provider and you don't have cyber, or maybe you have one or the other, or you don't have the cyber, I should say, when you first get that attack, what do you do? Who do you call? How do I manage it? How do I find out how bad this is? So a cyber carrier will have a team of people that are available. So I had a claim about 6 months ago. A very large manufacturing company got hit with ransomware. And this literally shut the company down. They shut down their lines because all their production lines were tied into all the software. I mean, they got through the whole system.
Crazy.
The client called me in panic and said, "We are shut down. What do I do?" And I said, let me get the cyber carrier on the phone. They have a 24/7 hotline.
Oh, nice.
Within 90 minutes, I had the controller, the client's managed IT provider. We had an attorney. We had a forensic expert and an IT expert all on the phone, and myself. The 6 of us had a conference call within 90 minutes of the attack.
Wow.
And everybody went out and did their job, found out the root cause, found out what they needed to do. In the end, I don't know quite how they do this, but there is out on the dark web, they know these bad actors, if they're legitimate or not, and if you pay the ransom, if you get the data back. The carrier went to the backups. The backups were hit as well. So they ended up paying the ransomware. They did all the forensic work. They found out the cause. They worked with the managed IT provider to put in additional things to potentially prevent it. But at the end, it was an employee clicking on a email that, so they then implemented employee training and actually testing software. But I think the biggest success that I can take away from that, and I've had multiple experiences with that, is where do I turn? And you have multiple experts on the phone guiding you from right. I mean, literally, the attorney said, you do business in these 7 states. These 3 states require that you notify the state in writing within 24 hours, or not with 24, it was 72 hours. So the attorney says, we'll get the letters out to the state. We'll let them know what you're doing. The forensics expert went in and found out what the root cause was. And you just get a whole team working on it. They were up and running in about 5 days. Now, it affected them immensely. But in addition to paying the ransomware, they paid the business interruption because their production lines were down for 5 days.
Jeez.
So they went, and it was a rather large claim. And client was just, I don't know what I would have done without this.
Crazy.
And
Hey,
so
as we're talking,
let me spend a minute on a that's a great thing from an insurance perspective where they paid out and it's a nice story. But let me tell you some wins that NTM has had. We haven't had, I don't have any wood to knock on, but we haven't had anybody get popped because we have so many layers. But we've had to, for insurance companies and for independent studies of, the big consulting firms have run us through scenarios where we've had to, okay, here's this part was compromised. We have successfully mitigated every single circumstance that any one of those consulting firms have sent to us at all. They all those scenarios that he just did, they clicked on an email. Our software caught it, our team caught it, and isolated it and mitigated it and had them up and running within literally minutes. And we've run these exercises with big consulting companies that we would know. I'm not going to say their names. I don't know what the legality is, but the big consulting firms have walked into our company, our customers, and said, okay, they didn't tell us what the scenario was going to be, but they said, this just got popped. This person just clicked on this. This server just became unusable. This server, and we had to go through every scenario. We've done it multiple times, and they went, wow, you guys really understand it. And we are constantly getting better. So I want to hammer the fact that yes, insurance companies like Sam pay out, but let's avoid it by being diligent. And that's a big arrogant thing to say because man, the bad actors are working hard, but we're also working hard with our security operations center, with our backups, and we just added another layer in the last week of security that we didn't even add on to our price. So we are working diligently to have success stories that a lot of times the client doesn't even know about. We've mitigated it before it even happened.
Yeah.
Well, as it was happening, I should say. So
I found really it was interesting that Sam said the cyber insurance policies are important, but they have to have a managed service provider, which is what, just bucketing on what you said a minute ago, Kelly. And if you don't have those two things, and you get hit, life is going to be super bad.
The amazing thing to me is when people get hit, they still keep their managed service provider. It's like, what? Oh yeah, we plugged this hole. Well, you weren't proactive. Why did you keep that person? It's like if your spouse cheats on you, what's going to stop them from doing it again? That's the time to make the change.
Yeah, 100%. So Sam, as we'll wrap this up here in a few minutes, but as we're talking about takeaways for businesses as they're watching this today, and maybe they send this recording to a colleague or a coworker or a business partner, what's one takeaway that businesses want to be aware of after watching this? What's one takeaway that you want them to be aware of after they see this video today?
I would say to focus on doing an assessment, working with your IT provider, or if you don't have one, regardless of size, you need somebody to come in and assess where you're at. Because through the assessment process, you can close 90% of the loopholes with just doing a proper assessment. We could talk about coverages and we can talk about the affordability and we can have it in place. But I think we opened up with the last thing you want to do is have to file that claim. I would rather throw that money away and never have an interruption into my business. Because even though your expenses get reimbursed, there is nothing worse than going through the experience. And I've lived through it dozens of times with clients because I'm always involved when there's a claim, helping them get through the process. And it's a very painful. So the one takeaway is the absolute best practice is prevention. Get an assessment, go through it, and make sure you're as locked down as you could be.
Love it.
Hey, I want to jump in there too. Is I tell you, even though we have standardization and we believe all of our customers be protected and locked down, those exercises that the insurance company puts us through makes us feel better, and it should make, because then we know, and it makes me feel better as the owner. And because we go through and we verify everything that they ask us real time. And why not have another, it's another checkpoint. It's another, yes, we looked at it. Yes, Sam, you're all covered. And it's not, we don't just say, yeah, we're covered. We go in and we make sure in our software that everything that they ask us is clicked and dotted. So it's another exercise that makes everybody feel good.
Yeah, agreed. That assessment is huge. I love that, Sam. Sam, where can people find out a little bit more about your agency and your expertise?
We're located in Southeast Michigan, but the easiest way to find us is on the web. Our web address is ciainsurance.com.
Okay.
And that will take you to our website. If you want to inquire about coverages or getting anything done there, we have a link that you can click on to reach out to us. If anybody wants to reach me directly, feel free to email me. Email address is scrudo@ciainsurance.com. Cool.
I love that. I love that. Sam, this has been a wonderful investment of our time, 45 minutes. I mean, just looking through the documents that you sent Kelly and I over the last few days, it's been amazing. And so thank you for sending those. We'll share those with everybody who's on the call today. There's 3 PDFs that Sam shared, including we'll get that checklist from you too, Sam, because I think that's really valuable to see for people and businesses to see, hey, these are things you need to have in place. If you don't, you're liable or you're at risk. And here's what that looks like. So I love that. You can check us out at ntm.com/offer, where we will not only have the white paper that Kelly referenced earlier today for businesses, but we're also going to have these educational resources as bonuses on that landing page as well. So you can check that out at trustntm.com/offer. Sam, I love the name of your agency, by the way, CIA Insurance. I was like, that just sounds like a badass name.
Yeah.
I hope you have that on your license plate on your vehicles.
I tried, it was already taken.
Well, Sam, Happy New Year to you, my friend. Thank you for joining us this morning. And Kelly, thank you for setting this up and facilitating this. And
Dave, you guys both Happy New Year. Thanks again for your time, and just be healthy and safe and kind into the new year. And Dave, make sure we get those all that information onto our offer page, because it's good stuff, and it will help. And I do want to make sure everybody still has my cell phone number. If there's questions on this, no questions asked, call me and I will explain it in English. So that number is 248-808-4888. It's only going to get more complicated. Use me as a resource. I will not try to sell you a thing. I just want to explain it and give back to the community, and understand that this is growing. As Sam said, this is a growing issue. But again, gentlemen, thank you for your time. It is New Year's Eve, and I can't thank you enough. NTM is actually closed today, and we're all working, so I appreciate you guys. And happy, healthy New Year to you and your families.
Well said, Kelly. Thanks, sir. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Sam. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.